Alright guys, jumping back into the bike selector tool again, let's talk through how we even get to this table, like how to these check marks, filter all the data and stuff like that. So at the heart of it, we have the data on these tabs, the frame and wheel set tabs, and this is just exported from Zwift Insider, so big thanks to Eric and everyone over there who puts this together. Basically, I just click on this Excel spreadsheet, download it, and then I generally keep it in the same format. That this is where it starts to be organized in the way that I can sort it. And then you see too up here we have like notes that are just coming from Zwift Insider. So I put everything in here. I've already gone over the green and yellow. That's just for visuals so you can quickly see. You know, for example, I'm a high enough level where pretty much everything's unlocked or I own it. But of course there's the higher level stuff. Those are the really valuable ones. What you'll notice too is in this sheet I'm concatenating the make and model so I can use that later. It's easier to read. And also I'm pulling from the garage tab to say like what do I actually own. And then this is all going to get pulled into some other sheets that are actually hidden. So if we go into here, you'll see all these orange tabs. So if I go into frame, there's quite a bit of data, but basically what we're doing here is saying, okay, looking at every possible combination. So, for the Allied Able frame, looking at every possible wheel set. And this tab might seem redundant because I'm just basically copying the frame here. But basically what happens is across all of these, I'm creating a grid of information. And every grid, if I go, for example, to D4, this cell is going to correspond to the same combo on every single sheet. Alright? And I'm doing it this way because there's just a huge number of possible combinations. And this is like an easy way to get all the data in one place. And then in a second I'll show you how I use the flatten equation to actually move all this to one long list. So I do it for level required, I'm doing it for flat times, doing it for climb times, and jungle times. And, for the frame, I think that's all, there's that one, I'll go over that in a second. For frame and wheel, this is pretty straightforward. It's just, telling me what frame and wheel corresponds to each of the corresponding cells. The level required is where it gets a little more complicated. What I want to know is, what's the highest level between the two? So for example, if I go to the Allied Able, I have to be level 15. And then if I go to the Bontrager Aeolus 5, if I pronounce that right, it's level 20. So what I should see here is level 20. But what you notice too is it's actually not applicable. Reason being, the Allied Able is a gravel bike, and this is a standard wheel, so it's not going to fit. So that's the other thing I'm checking. Do these actually fit together? So let's go to the next one. BMC Road Machine. See that max level is 21. And then for the Aeolus, again, it's 20. And since 21 is higher than 20, what I'm going to get here is 21. And that way when I'm in the bike selector, the level required is based on the highest one possible. Moving on to flat times, climb times, and jungle times, what we're doing is we're basically doing the math behind some of these tests when they're looking at actually fastest times. Let me see if I can find that. So in here, Zwift Insider, Eric has gone through with the team there, and they've actually compared all these different wheel sets on this, graph here. It's really cool. You can hover over the graph, you see the Trons there, you can see the Scott Attic plus the MV 7.8 is there. And it's relatively easy to see. You can kind of choose based on this, and maybe that suits you. But what the nice thing is about this is it's just going to tell you exactly which one's the fastest and which one's the slowest in each of these. If you have a mixed course, you kind of have to know yourself, or you can refer to this. So in flat times, this calculation here is basically saying, okay, how fast is your frame, and how fast is your frame with the wheel set? And it does that by comparing how fast, for example, the wheel set is compared to the stock wheel set. And the stock wheel set is always, I believe, the 50 millimeter, if not the 32 millimeter Zwift carbon. And so it's calculating the difference there. And if you go into wheel sets, you can see here, yeah, it's the 32 millimeter. You can see this equation goes and handles that. You can dive more into all these equations too if you want. But what it does cleverly is it just says, okay, take this time and add it to this time. And then you get, this time. And so it does that for every possible combination. There's almost 6,000 of them. And so it does that for climbs, jungle, and flat. Now once you have that, you've got all this data. You have the frame, wheel, level required, etc., all in different tables. And so what you do is then you use this flattened formula to pull it all into one table. And since since D4 references the same combo in every one of these sheets, this just lines up nicely. The only issue with this is you can't sort this just based on the equations. So once we have all the data here, which will automatic update if we ever add wheel sets and frames, which is always happening, you go into here and use something called a query command or function. And then the fun of the query function all comes down here. Now if you're lost at this point and if you're saying, geez Frank, why do I care about all this? Feel free to stop. But this is just like the advanced Google Sheets formulas that I used, just so you can better understand where I'm coming from. Maybe I made a mistake. Anyway, so now you can see we're starting to pull in all of the column headings. In query, you talk in terms of the column letters versus the actual column heading. And so I'm just reading that in with an equation here. And then from here, I'm saying the select command basically says, what columns do you want to see? And so I'm pulling that from up here, if you remember from earlier. The where part of query is basically saying it's like conditional, right? Like I want to see it where it's owned by me, or where it's doesn't have an NA because it's a gravel and a standard, a gravel wheel set and a standard bike frame, that sort of thing. It's checking all these for you. And then the order by is just your sorting. So do you want to see it fastest or slowest? Do you want to see it alphabetical? And some of that I just have programmed in that you can change if you come into here, but otherwise it's just based on here. So if I change this to slowest, you can see all these change to descending versus ascending. And then if I check these boxes, you can see it starts loading in as E is owned, so it's saying if it's true that it's owned. F is about level, it's saying the level is less than or equal to my level, 38. And up here, it's saying the frame type, it's not equal to TT for excluding. And when I turn those off, it basically doesn't look for it. And then finally the limit one, pretty straightforward again. If I enter 10 here, whatever number, it just limits the number of rows. So that's basically how this works. I know that was a long video. Hopefully it answered any questions you other fellow Google Sheets and Excel nerds had out there. If not, just post a comment and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Thanks so much.